I'm Annie Sloan.
And I'm Tristan Merriam.
And this is The Colourist,
a podcast about colour and its influence on our lives. So this week we are looking at two colours, Antibes Green, which is one of your chalk paints, and Schinkel Green, which is one of your wall paints. So not everybody is familiar with your colours and these particular ones. Talk to us about these colours. How would you describe them?
bright greens, really bright greens. Schinkel is a little calmer, bit more feet on the ground, and Antibes is a little brighter. So they sort of work together, but they're not exactly the same. And I know when I first brought out Antibes, was one of the first, it was one of the, I think it might have been the 22nd, well, it was number 22, but it would have been in the not the first 12, the second 12. So it's an early colour. And I do remember people going, "Oh, I love your colours. They're really, really lovely. Really nice." Um, the green. Can you
One
tell
wild
me?
card, maybe. Yeah.
So that green was there because I had seen that I was always interested in painted furniture, obviously, and I would find that there was a lot of green pieces, sort of mid 19th century onwards, and it had come out actually when we talked about the blue and finding that wonderful um, Prussian blue.
Mm.
From that came a green as well. So there was a bright green. And you'd find it in Hungarian painted furniture, or Eastern European furniture would be coming into England at the time. And I'd see it and think, that's an amazing colour. I love it. And you'd think, wonder what that was like when it was really clean and fresh. And it would have been a bright green. And there was also Irish furniture, was this quite a bright, strong green. So I thought it's a fantastic colour. And so I brought Antibes Black, thinking particularly of putting dark waxes on it.
Mm.
And I think I really love it. It's still one of my favourite colours.
Well, I think if you were to be a colour, I personally think you would be Antibes or Schinkel or a variation of the two.
Yeah.
That to me is the colour that sums you up.
Oh.
And I think there's been a previous interview we've done where you might have even said the word favourite.
Yeah.
And I do think we're in your house now in Oxford, and there is so much Antibes and Schinkel Green around here. I'm sat in a chair that is Antibes.
Yeah.
I'm looking at part of your living room, which is Schinkel, plus an Antibes. It's everywhere. My point is, you clearly love this colour.
I do.
And you wanted to bring out a colour that represented what you loved, as well as the neutrals and the initial range. I think that's a brave thing to do.
I love it, and I think people have now seen it. And there's a really lovely. I have this house in France, and my bedroom and my bed is painted in it too. And I think people are amazed to see that it works. It doesn't look bizarre or crazy or weird, but it is Antibes with black wax on it or dark wax, and it's got gold as well. And those three colours, things together,
magical,
magical. So that green was there, but there was also this idea of this bright green, which I had seen or been introduced to when I was doing a book called Colour and Decoration, which I did. It was a Francis Lincoln book. There's a publisher in, I think I was doing it in 1990 or 90. It was about the time I brought my paints out. And I was writing, it was about colour, and we divided the book into different colours and variations of different, like the greens, light, dark, middle, bright greens. And Francis Lincoln was married to someone called
John Nicol.
John Nicol, thank you.
Got my notes.
Yeah, you have your notes. I did write, and I forget names very, very easily. So John Nicol was working at, I think he was running Yale University Press, and he happened to be writing a book at that time, or doing a book about probably neoclassicalism. And he sent over by his wife these photographs of this incredible room in Germany, which was done at the very early part of the 19th century. And it was designed by Karl Friedrich Schinkel. And I'd never heard of him, never seen it. And suddenly this whole universe opened up. And I've been going on about him forever. and I think he's well known in Germany, but he's not well known
No,
in
I
Britain.
mean, the first time I heard his name really was through the wall paint, Schinkel Green, when that came out. And I'm thinking, I wonder what Schinkel is. There's bound to be a story to tell, because there is with all of them.
Yeah.
And then obviously doing this podcast and planning our episodes, that's when I really was exposed to his work. And I can't believe I'd never really heard of him, because I've been amazed by seeing what he does, or did rather.
Yeah, no, he's really quite incredible. His dates are 1781 to 1841, reading this because I don't remember these dates. And he was an architect, a city planner, a painter, and he also did stage design. So he was a pretty incredible man.
Yeah, very versatile range.
Yeah. I think people did tend to be. It was the age of enlightenment, and people thought they could do all sorts of things. They were allowed to. We're very not allowed to do that now, are we?
No.
So much. Not allowed, but it was more accepted then.
So explain, you mentioned the word neoclassical. Yeah. Explain what that really is all about.
Well, it's very interesting because it's the opposite of what we've been talking about for the last two episodes. So it was two women who were very much, it was Georgia O'Keeffe and Frida Kahlo, who were very much talking about themselves, their response to the environment and what their lives were, etc. And what he does is completely the opposite, really. He is, it's from neoclassical, the classical world would be the ancient Greece and ancient Rome, particularly Greece, and it would be everything symmetrical, and it's the age of enlightenment. Everything's reasoned and measured and thought through, and carefully approached. Lots of symmetry, lots of reason. Anyway, so he's primarily an architect involving lots of Greek ideas and what have you. And Pompeii was big then, so he would have visited Pompeii, I suspect. I don't know. And so there was a lot of colour there, and he actually almost replicated those rooms. So he had a room which was that wonderful sort of earthy bright red, a sort of primer red type thing, and he'd use lots of blacks and blues and all sorts of things. But I didn't see that to begin with. I first saw this bedroom, which was a bedroom I think done for the King of Prussia then. And it's in Berlin. He worked both in Berlin and in Potsdam, and he did lots of work in various houses. I forgot the question.
Yeah, well, we've just gone off on it. I mean, so have I, to be honest. I want to know that you first saw this room and it was the green that drew you to him.
Yes.
But yeah, I want to know what it was about him that really appealed to you. It probably, I'm guessing, wasn't his architecture. It was more of
the architecture. I mean, I don't really relate to architecture that well, I'm afraid. But the colour, I was just knocked out. I had never seen anything done in this sort of way. A room which is bright green.
I've got the photos in front of me.
It is
now
stunning.
And it really is. I mean, that would have been quite shocking at the time.
I'd have thought so.
When are we talking? Early 1800s?
Yes, early 1800s.
I can imagine that must have been quite different.
Yeah, because when I first saw it, I thought, oh, something very modern here.
Yeah.
Amazed to find it wasn't at all. The bedroom itself has got, it's a bed, green rooms, lots of gold.
Lots of wood.
Lots of wood.
The floor, the doors, the bed itself is mainly wooden.
Yes, but green walls and lots of gold, and green fabrics as well with gold tassels and all sorts of things. It was really the colour that just completely knocked me out. And then I found it was right next to another room that was actually quite a bright pink. Which also had some blue bits in it, quite aquamarine blue. I mean, the whole thing is just a dance of colour. And then I went to see that, knocked out completely. There's rooms with red backgrounds, red alcoves, a room which is red,
the
white,
bright
and
blue
gold,
as well
and
next
bright
to it.
Blue, yeah, and then I went to this wonderful, wonderful place in Berlin called, I think it's the Gleinica villas, and it's almost it's very modern because the rooms aren't enormous, although they're royal rooms. The whole place is a little bit like Versailles. You know,
Mm.
there's buildings all around. So this was all built for the king, but he didn't. It was built after the idea of how it was in Versailles, one big palace and then lots of little places that you could go and stay. I don't know. Anyway, this house is quite. It's not tall seat. It's quite tall seat, but not. It's more relatable to.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did find it particularly modern. And you'd see the first room, I think, is blue, and the next room is red, and the next room is green. I can't remember the order, but you can look
That's
through the door,
mm.
and you see every color.
This to me is what excites me the most.
Mm.
Is when we started looking at Schinkel, that's the conversation we had. It's amazing to see through a home, or in this case, you know, a stately home, a palace, whatever we want to call it. But that idea of looking from one part of your home into another, through a doorway, through a corridor, through a hallway, and seeing the colours, block colours, from one room to the next is so amazing. Actually, when you see these photos, yeah, I'm looking at one now and it's green, then through to pink, then through to blue, and it's incredible.
Yeah.
But what surprises me is the age of this property is you wouldn't associate these very vivid colours with that sort of property. They're often much more muted. But a cerise pink, a bright kind of Schinkel green, as we've said, and a bright blue, yeah, not at all what I'd expect from that style of property.
And the funny thing is that I'm always trying to find out about what these colours were and where did they get them and all the rest of it. I mean, presumably, obviously, this was done for the royal family, so they had money. So money was probably not an object, wouldn't be get in the way. So they could get the finest pigments and do what they wanted. But even so, I do try to find out. There's probably a learned book somewhere, but I haven't been able to find it. To find out
how,
who, why, what, where, how, where. You know, I'd love to know. When I went to the Gleinica villa, I did ask the person there if there was anybody who could tell me, but nobody could. Nobody there. Everybody writes about the architecture.
I know, and that's what we've said as well.
And the things in the house,
yes.
But no one talks about the actual colours of the walls,
which is what we are all over. But I mean, looking at these photos, it's a very grand property. So
that one is, but there is another one.
Yes,
you're not looking at Gleinica.
No, I'm looking at this one.
Yeah.
But it's kind of a contrast to the colours because, as I say, these bright pinks, bright greens, but on the walls, the paintings are all very traditional and hung a certain way, and the furniture's quite, well, not modest, that's the wrong word, but certainly not as bright and colourful as the walls.
Yes.
So it just sort of looks a bit out of place, the colour of the walls, but in a good way.
In a very
I mean,
good
I love
way.
it,
Yeah.
but it's just not typical of the time.
Yes. So this is so there's several places. So there's Sanssouci, which is one place, which I think that's in Berlin. Then there's the Charlottenhof, which is in Potsdam, and there's this Gleinica. There's the three that I've seen. I haven't seen everything, I'm afraid, but they're all absolutely. The colour is fantastic. I like the way Sanssouci means without care, and I think there was a certain amount of devil may care about it. Now, the reason these colours are bright, the only thing I would say is that neoclassical times, and I sort of vaguely talked about it, were quite strong. I mean, Pompeii, wasn't done in pale colours or soft, or they were strong colours. So that would be part of what was going on. So, and the neoclassical thing also is sort of the Roman idea of it's not pretty and flowers. It's about war, and the symbols are strength and power, and that sort of thing, rather than. It's not Rococo. It's the opposite of Rococo. We'll do something about Rococo at some point, which is about prettiness and about.
No, this is very strong.
This is
sharp
strong.
lines, a colour on the wall, often a white ceiling, white kind of coving or whatever. It's a strong colour up against a crisp white line.
Yeah.
And these photos we've been looking at are very grand, as most of them.
Those ones are. The ones at
How-
Gleinica are not.
Not so much.
No, it's a very simple house, very relatable to, I think.
Well, that's what I want to draw upon, because you might look at these images and think, oh my gosh, I could never have that at home.
Yeah.
I'm sat in your home and
Yeah.
I can see you can have that very clearly.
Yeah.
But
And I don't have particularly tall ceilings.
And you don't live in a palace. It's a beautiful house, but it's a normal house, and I think that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm sort of digging myself into a hole now. How can people use these colours in normal houses as part of their decorating? If somebody wants to have a green wall, can they do that? How can they do that?
They certainly can have a green wall. I do think that if you are scared of having a bright colour on your wall and you think, I couldn't possibly live it, what I do is put quite a lot of pictures on the wall. So there are lots of things. So you don't just get a huge lump
expanse
of green.
Yeah.
It's broken up. And actually the pictures look, I think, are enhanced by the fact.
Absolutely.
That. And this was something years and years ago when I first used to go to galleries and museums. The walls were always white and it's deadly dull.
Yeah.
And then they started going, oh, actually, and they started doing strong, bright colours, and suddenly the pictures came alive.
You were inspired by Schinkel's part of his work, which was colour in the interiors, because of this green. He obviously used other colours as well, but there was one room in particular, the bedroom, which was this Schinkel Green.
Well, that was the one that went, oh my goodness, that is incredible. And then I saw all the other stuff. Yes. It was the green that hit me the first.
Yeah. And as we've said, he did lots of things, but for us, we're drawn to his use of colour. He also did theatre design as well. And there's one room, I'm not sure, I think it's in the palace. Yes, so it's called the tent room.
Oh.
So this I'd just like to talk about for a second, because it's not green. It's not actually a strong colour at all. But the reason it's quite interesting and shocking is because the entire room, which was designed for companions and guests, is tented. So the wallpaper, the ceiling, the kind of drapes above the bed, the fabric that itself on the bed, it's all this same striped pattern.
Yeah.
And that's, again, thinking of the time, and it's probably early 1800s for this room, that's quite a controversial thing to do, probably. It's almost like the equivalent of colour drenching in today's world. It's doing a whole room in the same
thing,
fabric, really.
I see what you mean, yeah. I think when you said that it's wallpaper, I don't think it is. I think it's all fabric.
It's fabric draped on the walls, but it looks like...
Well, it's big French.
So it is all the exact... That makes it even more brave.
Yeah.
Because it's all the same fabric, upholstered, stuck on the walls, hung from the walls, hanging above the beds.
Yeah, we'll post a picture of that as well.
But that's
and there's something similar to that in Malmaison in France.
Okay.
So I think there was a lot of, you've done that, I'm going to do that as well. The French were thought of as pretty good. It's Napoleonic. It looks like a campaign bed. So, the French soldiers, they would go and Napoleon would probably have a tent in his when he was on manoeuvres or whatever it's called. And they would have a tent room, and it was campaign. There were campaign beds, campaign everything. It was all very, very Napoleonic.
I see.
And so that's what this is all based on.
But it goes back to the symmetry as well. You're saying it's very symmetrical. This room, I'm looking down the room, and the window is central, bed either side of the window. It's completely symmetrical.
Yeah.
But that I found that, although it's not the colour, he was obviously a very brave designer. And he wanted to do things that hadn't really been done too much.
Yes, yeah. I mean, yes, I think, incredibly creative. We'll post, do all the pictures of his Pompeian rooms as well. They are all absolutely beautiful, beautifully coloured and strong, powerful stuff. Really good.
So at the moment, I'm obsessed with Interior Design Masters.
Oh.
And
this is a TV show.
This is a
TV
BBC
show.
With Alan Carr and Michelle.
So if you're
Agundan.
listening from America, you may not be able to get it, but maybe you will later.
Yes,
so
I think it might be on
happening.
certain platforms. Well, I was reflecting and thinking, if he were to be a contestant on Interior Design Masters, what would he be doing? What's he known for? What do you think his designs would pull together?
I think exactly what we've just talked about. Bright, bright colour. Yes. So this show, they get various contents, and everybody has to. You're given. You have to do a bedroom or in a hotel, or you have to
Yes,
do
or
something, and then they
cafe or something.
cafe, and then you have to do it. And I think what he would have been doing would have been very strong design, strong colours, and symmetry,
Mm-hmm.
and probably neoclassical design. So it's pillars, it's architectural. There, uh, triangled pediments,
Mm-hmm.
columns, all of that sort of thing. He would have done a modern version of that,
Yes.
possibly.
I know, yeah. I was just thinking
Yeah.
about it. But
Well,
also, oh, go on.
No, well, I was going to say, talking of that, so there's a modern designer called Luke Edward Hall,
Yes, I've
and
got some of his
he
books.
did a wonderful, wonderful Parisian hotel.
Yes, I've seen.
So we had that in our magazine, in the green edition. So there's quite a lot of stuff in there.
The bookazine, the Colourist.
The bookazine, yes, it's issue 7, and there's some great stuff. I'm just looking through now. There's some great stuff, and in there you'll see Luke Edward Hall's amazing hotel, and he did the rooms bright green, and there's sort of a neoclassical element to that. So
Absolutely.
I think this is what he would have
and
done.
a lot of gold. The gold comes into it.
Yeah, we'll put that picture up.
Yeah, and he's a great designer. Great person to follow.
Terrific.
Actually.
So I quite like it. I've done a page there where on the one side I've got this great Luke Edward Hall, and the other side I've got the
Schinkel Green. Well, what a perfect combo.
I know.
So I think the reason he was very groundbreaking and shocking at the time is because he was doing something that nobody else was. It hadn't really been done. These bright colours in this kind of very wealthy home or palace, it didn't go. Nowadays we're saturated, everything's available to us. We can get any color, we can get any wallpaper. Maximalism is definitely in, and you can do anything you want. So it would be very hard if he were to be existing now. He probably wouldn't be famous for that because it's done, isn't it? But how do we take that forward? What can we learn from him?
Oh, that's a good question, because I'm learning from him because of the colour. I still think you're saying we can do anything we like, but people still are scared to do it. Why? And yet, Luke Edward Hall has done this wonderful. It is a hotel, I know, but even
people are much more confident to experience colour in hotels.
Yes,
and cafes and places that they don't live, aren't they? But that shows they like it and they appreciate it.
Yeah.
But they don't quite dare to do it in their own home.
Yeah, I don't know how to stop people doing that. And they say, well, I was talking to some people and they were saying, well, we live in a country district. Well, I could live in a country.
Yeah, absolutely. And look at this palace that Schinkel's, that's very much
it was
in a country district.
It was in the countryside.
Sorry.
It was definitely, although it was quite grand working for the king.
Yes, that's true. We can't all say we work for the king.
No, but I think, I don't know, it is very difficult because it is a big thing when you paint your whole room bright green. But there are some people out there, who are doing it. There are lots of people doing it. So I mustn't sound negative about it. I don't think we should, because we're saying nobody does it. Well, actually they do.
Yeah.
Lots of people do.
They do, yeah.
And so just, I don't know, be brave. I don't know.
Yes,
be brave.
I think that's it.
I think if you are the sort of person that actually doesn't want to offend, this is something. I don't know if I've told this story before. I might have done. Someone who came to my shop and they said, what colour? I said, what colour are you looking for? And she said, something that won't offend. Well, if you have that mindset, you're not going to do this. But I'm not trying to offend with this, but I don't want to do something that maybe some people are offended by. Well, because it's my house. I live here.
Yeah, I know. It's just the most bizarre thing, but I've heard it in my shop as well. Similar conversations, and it's just crazy. I think also another piece of advice would be to people who are listening to this, actually having the history behind it and seeing such a vivid green used in the early 1800s in a palace actually gives it a lot more context, and you're not just picking a bright color, you're actually basing it on a designer and something really classy and well thought out actually. So it might be worthwhile for people to research that color
It
and
will do.
learn from these people.
Yeah, so I'm trying to see if I can find somebody who I think his Instagram is I'm not a maximalist, and he is.
Ah,
Um,
good name.
um, and he's in Oklahoma.
Right.
So
Oh, I know who you
you
mean.
know who I mean. I
I
can't
know who
remember
you
his
mean.
name, but
No.
and he has actually we gave him some of my green, and he's painted a room in his house in that color. So I've got to find it, and we'll link that in everything so people can see.
Yes,
Um,
I know exactly who you mean, but I can't think of what his
I
Instagram
think
is.
it's I'm not a I've obviously got it wrong, but I can't find it. But anyway, we'll link that because yeah, I don't want people thinking, oh no, nobody does that. Well, they
They do,
do.
and it can be done, and it's been
Yeah.
done hundreds of years ago.
I think one of the words is maximalist, as if you're going to use bright colors, you have to be a
Yeah.
maximalist. And I mean, I don't know if you would call me a maximalist. I don't really think I am.
Well, define maximalist.
Yeah.
It's one of those words, isn't it? People have different opinions on what it really truly means.
Yeah.
I would say it's eclectic, and it's interesting, and it's art centered, so there's a heavy focus on the artwork on the walls and ornaments and the things that you've collected.
Mm.
So I suppose you could call that maximalism in some ways, because there's a whole variety of different
Mm.
textures and fabrics and patterns, and it all comes together. But
What we haven't talked about is what does these colours go with. So
yeah,
if you want to paint something bright green, my Antibes, and we've said gold works really well. I think all the blues look really good because it is quite a strong colour. If you then put it down with some blues, it will make it quite a mellow thing. So actually, my office at where I work, at in where we make the paint, I've got my studios. I've got an anti green floor, and I've got on blue
Napoleonic.
walls,
Yeah,
Napoleonic blue walls, and it's very calming,
yeah.
very calming, and I think I've got low level lighting, so that green floor is fantastic.
Mm.
If you're a bit scared of it, you can also do just like green lamps or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's not huge.
Just test the waters.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it goes well with whites. What else do you use it for?
Green.
Yeah.
Um,
Or that
so
bright green.
that
Antique.
bright green at home, it's in one room,
Mhm.
and that is our downstairs loo,
Mhm.
and it is Schinkel Green. And in there, I've got lots of other colours. So
Right.
there's paintings on the wall, and all the frames are painted in various chalk paint colours.
Uh-huh.
There's Antibes is in there actually as another colour. Auberson blues in there, Capri pinks in there. It's going to sound crazy
Yeah.
over this,
Yeah.
but it's a bit like
You're
in here.
talking us out
There
of
are
it.
so many, yeah, there are so many colours that it just pulls together as
Yeah.
this really
Yeah.
eclectic space, but it doesn't feel cluttered or overwhelming.
I think you have to remember
It's balanced.
The opposite, the complementary color is red.
Mm.
So I would not use bright green and bright
Would
red
be your
together.
Christmas room.
It could be your Christmas room.
Your Christmas loo. Yeah. No.
So you've got to be careful. I think you need to deeper, calmer colors. And I wouldn't do a white with it so much because a white's going to be
very vivid.
a sort of a softer white.
Yeah.
It could even be Rococo white with slightly pinky. That might be rather lovely. It would bring out them both. And actually, yellow, the right yellow looks amazing. But you do have to get the right yellow. If you get it too yellow, it can look a bit like I was going to say a sea of buttercups. But that might be quite nice.
Yeah, it might be quite nice actually.
But yeah, you've got to be that. For me, green and yellow is quite a difficult combo.
But I think as a colour, it brings things to life. As you said about these prints, it just makes those things pop. And if they were on a white wall, they would have nowhere near as much impact.
Yeah. So I'm really hoping that people will get the nerve to paint green and to paint Antibes and paint Schinkel, knowing the colours you can go with it. Actually, I said no white, but my fireplace is
You've broken your own
white
rule.
marble.
Yeah, you've got whites in.
And I got white,
coving
and
and picture rails, and it looks really clean and crisp.
Yeah. So anyway, I will take photographs. We'll show you how to use it, and enjoy.
And maybe people can send us photos of painted walls in Schinkel or pieces in Antibes.
Yes.
On Instagram, Doghead Designs, Annie Sloan Instagram. That would be wonderful.
One thing we have promised to do is to do one which will be a live one, and where we get people to ask questions.
Oh, wouldn't that be good?
Yeah, we might got any. We may not get any.
Well, there we go. Ask us questions.
Well, I'll just get Vinny to ask them.
Yes, we can pretend. No, but yeah, send us photos, ask us questions.
I think asking questions, I think we should do I've just come up with this. Everyone's going, oh my God, no. But I think it'd be good, wouldn't you think? Yeah. I mean... They've got to say yes.
Yeah, exactly. No, I think it's a great idea.
But it'd be nice to do a live thing and answer questions on colour. If you do like the idea, please tell us. If you don't like the idea, just don't say anything, and then
we'll soon know. We'll see the eerie silence.
Only 2 people want to do it.
Well, as always, thank you very much to everyone for listening. Another fantastic episode. In the meantime, before our next episode is out, please do subscribe to our podcast channel wherever you listen to yours and leave a review. It all helps to boost our ratings. What are we thinking, Annie? You're looking at me as if you want to say something.
I did, yeah. It's not a minimalist.
An afterthought. We're still on this.
Daniel Barrett Mathis
in
Oklahoma City, and he's used Schinkel, and we'll put it all on my Instagram page and on your page when this goes live. And so you can see all the pictures that we've been trying to describe to you. So I've really enjoyed it, and
see you next time, I guess.
Do we know what the next one is?
Well, no, I don't know.
We've run out of ideas, maybe.
No, it's like we've recorded them all out of sync, haven't we? So it's like, which one is coming next?
Yeah. I've got a list, really a big long list. Yes. So when I said we're running out of ideas,
it's a surprise.
It's a surprise. It might be a surprise to
we
us
might have already
well.
recorded it. Who knows? We've lost the plot now, haven't we?
Well, I'm going to Mexico, and when I come back from there, we're back onto it, and we've got so many good plans. Anyway.
Cool. Thank you for listening. See you next time.
Yeah. Bye.